لشکر صاحب زمان آماده باش آماده باش 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 بهر نبردی بی امان آماده باش آماده باش لشکر
إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المظلومين المعصومين صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أنت سيد ابن سيد وأنت إمام ابن إمام أخو إمام أبو الأئمة وأنت حجة الله وابن حجته وأبو حججه 9 من صلبك تاسعهم مهديهم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Brothers and sisters, allow us this morning to shed some light on the life of our beloved Imam Hussain salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. However, we would like to shed some light on a particular aspect of his life, which is his imamah, which is from the day he received his imamah after the martyrdom of his brother Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba salamullahi alayh in the year 50 after Hijrah until the events that lead up to Karbala. Because as we mentioned a few days ago, that alhamdulillah, as we Shias attend the majalis of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and the majalis of Imam Hussain in the days of Muharrum, there is a lot of emphasis on the events that took place from the year 60 and 61 after Hijrah, which is from the day Imam Hussain alayhi salam took off from the city of Medina and went to Mecca and then eventually to Karbala. However, there is very little information that is being shared about the life of Imam Hussain alayhi salam in the years before that. So in the previous majlis, alhamdulillah, we did talk about his life as a child and his life with his father Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and his life with his brother Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. And today what I would like to shed the light on and explain a bit further is his life as an imam, as in his life when he actually held up the responsibility of imamah, which was from the day his brother Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, our second imam, was martyred, until the day he was martyred himself, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. Before we delve into that, please allow me to give a brief introduction. This brief introduction is something that's usually is a question that's on our minds when we come to talk about the role of the imamah and the positions of the imam salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim in general, the whole 12 imams. And that is these 12 imams that we have. They all have particular titles. For example, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, his name is Ali, but his title is Amir al-Mu'mineen. Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, his name is Hassan, but his title is Mujtaba. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, his title is Ash-Shaheed. and so on, the titles for the rest of the Imams. And the question that some Shias ask is that, are these titles, are they something that they acquired with time? Is it that they were born called Hassan, or they were born called Hussein, and then as 50 years later, 60 years later, they were famous for something, and that was the title that was given to them eventually? The answer to that is no. The titles of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam was given to them and was assigned to them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the day they were created. And as we know, the creation of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam was many years before the creation of the universe itself. And even many years before the creation of Adam alayhi salam. So when they were created from that one nur, and they were divided up into these anwar of ma'sumeen, the 14 ma'sumeen, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Each one of them was given their name, like Ali, and they were also given their title, like Amir al-Mu'mineen, and so on. And the reason we say that, and we have that, is first of all, we have many narrations and ahadith that explain that and make it clear that they were called that from the day they were born. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, in many ahadith, in many places, in many occasions, he lists the names of his khulafa, he lists the names of his dhurriya and his family, and he mentions each one of them with their title. Like, for example, one day he saw Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, the famous companion, and he said to him, Ya Jabir, you are going to live long enough to see my grandson Muhammad. And his title is Al-Baqir. When you see him, make sure you tell him that your grandfather Rasulullah sends his salam to you. So he didn't also tell him that his name is Muhammad, but he said his title is Al-Baqir. So, and that means that, and there's also many other ahadith, like the ahadith, if you look at it, Al-Lawh al-Akhdar, the green board that was brought down from heaven by Jibreel alayhi salam and was given to Fatima to Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha, and it was a board that has the names of all the Imams with their titles and what will happen to all of them. This is, if you all are interested, I didn't bring the list of ahadith because there's so many, but you can look at them, and there is many narrations where Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima to Zahra salamullahi alayha, they all describe each Imam and their title alongside with them. So as followers of Ahlul Bayt, we believe that these titles were assigned to them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the day they were created. And that's why we cannot play with their titles. We cannot give their titles. And that's why one of the Shias, they went one day to Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam and said to him, Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. You are the master of believers. It's true. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, at the time, he was the master of the believers. But Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam said to him, don't call me that. This title was given particularly to my grandfather, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullahi alayhi, and nobody else is allowed to use it. So even the 12 Imams themselves, the 11 Imams, they were not happy to be called Amir al-Mu'mineen, let alone these so-called Khulafa. They came afterwards. Each one of them gets given Amir al-Mu'mineen this, Amir al-Mu'mineen that. This is one of the unfortunates in our history these days. But that's one thing that we have to understand, is that these titles were given to the Imams one by one. The other thing that we have to understand is that that title that was given to that Imam was also got to do with the history, that part of history that Imam lived in. Say, for example, Imam Zayn al-Abidin salamullahi alayhi, our fourth Imam. His title is Zayn al-Abidin, the best of worshippers. As-Sajjad, the one who was constantly in prostration for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that mean that the rest of the Imams salamullahi alayhim, the other 11 Imams, were not Zayn al-Abidin? Definitely not. They were Zayn al-Abidin. They were all at the highest level of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they were all in constant prostration to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, the time in history that Imam Sajjad alayhi salam lived in, he was not able to do much other than dua and salat and ibadah. Why? Because Bani Umayyah, he lived obviously his first years of imamah under the time of Yazid ibn Muawiyah la'natullahi alayh, and followed by the other khulafa who came and took over, which were from Marwan ibn al-Hakam and the children of Marwan, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan la'nallahu alayh. So these people, they had so much restraint on the imam that he wasn't able to teach in public. Could Imam Sajjad, have you heard that Imam Sajjad alayhi salam could sit in the mosque of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi and give a lesson, give a khutbah, give a lesson in fiqh, show what the opinion of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam was in this matter and that matter? No, he was not allowed. And that's why you find that Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, we have two famous khutbahs for him. One he delivered in Kufa when he was in captivity, and one he delivered in Sham when Yazid ibn Muawiyah was put under pressure that this man wants to get up on the minbar and talk. Why don't you let him? And there was a delegate from Rome, and he was sitting in the majlis of Yazid. He said, you know, Yazid, what do you got to worry about? This young captive that you have brought, you say he's a khariji, he's a captive, he wants to speak. Let him speak. What is he going to do? And that's when Imam Sajjad had that opportunity to give that very beautiful and famous and amazingly deep khutbah that inshallah one day we can have maybe a series of 10 lectures just to explain the khutbah of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam in Sham. So what he had, all he could do was dua, and he displayed the aspect of worship and dua and salah in the life of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam shined so much more that he was known amongst the Shias and the followers as Zayn al-Abidin, as Sajjad, and he was given that title, and that aspect of his life shined the most. And as I said, the rest of the Imams were just as much in worship. Imam Sajjad himself, alayhi salam, he used to open the book, they call it Al-Jami'ah. This book is called Al-Jami'ah. It is a book that contains everything about the lives of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and everything about Islam and the interpretation of Quran and many other fields of knowledge. He used to open it and he used to look and he used to say, who can reach the worship of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? He used to look at how Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen used to worship, and he used to say, nobody can reach that level of worship that he reached. So he was Zayn al-Abidin and he was a Sajjad, but that's because that was the only field he was given. However, the situation changed with the life of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, he lived in a time where the Umayyad kingdom was starting to become very weak, and it was starting to become out of control, that they could not restrain Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam from talking as they could do with his father. So he had the opportunity to teach, he had the opportunity to speak in public, he had the opportunity to have students. His students were allowed to spread the knowledge that they were learning from their teacher, and that's why he became as Baqir al-Ulum. He's the one who opened the gates of knowledge. He is the one who opened many fields of knowledge that were untouched in the past. And what happened was that Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, he also had the responsibility of showing the people what the opinion of Rasulullah and the opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many different aspects, because in his time the schools of fiqh were developing. The Hanafi, the Shafi'i, the Hanbali, and those, they were starting to develop in that time. The controversies about how did Rasulullah make wudu? And all these people say, oh, I think based on the ayah, Rasulullah used to wash like this. And so on. And Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, it was his responsibility at the time. He used to say, Ala urikum wudu'a Rasulillah. Do you want me to show you how Rasulullah used to make wudu? This is how he used to make wudu. And he would grab the water and he would show the Muslims, this is how Rasulullah made wudu. And that's why we find in our books of fiqh, Qala al-Baqir, Qala al-Sadiq. Many of them. Not that Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam had more knowledge than the rest of the 12 and the rest of the Imams. No. But they had the opportunity to express that knowledge while others were either in captivity or were under house arrest, or were pushed out to another country or another city, so that they had no interaction with other Muslims. Once we understand that, we start realizing why these titles shine the most, like the generosity of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. The rest of the Imams were just as generous. But as I explained to you in the past, that Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba lived in that situation where Muawiyah had put so much restraint and restrictions on the Shia that they became all very poor. So Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba had to then open his house and made it into what we call like a madhif. He made it into like a hostel, open for everybody. Anybody hungry, anybody thirsty, anybody needs a place to stay. His house was open for everyone. And that's why he was known for his generosity. The rest of the other 11 Imams are just as generous, just as knowledgeable, just as great in worship. Or for example, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. He was a-Sadiq, which means the trustworthy, the most honest. All of them were trustworthy and all of them were honest, of course. But the reason why he was given the title of a-Sadiq was because, as I said, there was many schools of thought, many theological beliefs, many ideologies forming at that time. Especially when the Islamic Empire expanded and we came across all these different philosophies and all these different ideologies. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he came and corrected the Muslims' beliefs back to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had originally brought down. He corrected the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam back to what it originally was. And that's why he was as-Sadiq. He was all the others like Abu Hanifa. When he used to say, well, I think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may want to prescribe things like this because of this. He was ijtihad. Ijtihad means it's my opinion and I extrapolate it from the Quran and from the Hadith and I think this is what my opinion is. All the other fuqaha, the other four schools of thought, the Sunni schools of thought, they are all ijtihad. They say Abu Hanifa was a mujtahid. Ahmad ibn Hanbal was a mujtahid. He extrapolated from the Quran and from the Hadith what he thought was the right thing to do. But Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam is not a mujtahid. He's not a mujtahid. He was as-Sadiq. He was the trustworthy one. When he said something, you knew that was exactly what Rasulullah had said. When he gave you the opinion in something, you know that is the opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he was given the title of as-Sadiq alayhi. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim. Otherwise, all of them were Sadiqeen. All of them were Jawad. All of them were Rida. All of them were Mujtaba. All of them were Shuhada. All of them were martyred. Is that correct? Do we have any doubt that any of them were not martyred? All of them were martyred. Now we have that, inshallah, introduction. We can delve back into the life of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. As I said, Imam Hassan Mujtaba in the city of Medina was martyred in the year 50 after Hijrah, and he was buried in the land of Baqi'. And Imam Hussain salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi obviously lived a very difficult 10 years after that, which was from the year 50 to the year 60. And these years, people say, what did Imam Hussain do? He didn't do anything. They think that imamah is all about sitting on the chair of governments. They think that if you want to be a good imam, you have to sit in the chair and you have to be in power and you have to be politically active and you have to do this. No. Imamah, the whole aim of imamah and nubuwwah and risala and prophethood and messenger is all to correct people's beliefs and to uphold the true message. That is the most important thing. It's not only about the political issues and the fighting and forming an army and things like that. The most important thing is to uphold the true message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to uphold justice, is to correct people's beliefs, to guide people to the correct path. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. That's the most important thing. So we find that Imam Hussain alayhi salam used those 10 years primarily for guidance. He used those primarily for guidance. There was a Khariji, I'll give you some examples from these 10 years. There was a Khariji by the name of Nafi' al-Azraq. Nafi' al-Azraq, he came to Medina and he asked Ibn Abbas. You all heard of Ibn Abbas. He was the cousin of the Imams and he was the son of Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib. And in the Sunni world, they call him Hibr al-Ummah. which is a strange title. Hibr is the rabbi of the Jewish people, believe. But they call him the rabbi of the Muslims. I don't know how that works. But because they say he was so knowledgeable that he gets given the title of Hibr al-Ummah, the most scholar of the Muslims. Anyway, Ibn Abbas, regardless of what we have to say about him, he was known amongst the Muslims as a good, a learned person in Quran and Hadith and so on. So he was asked by this Khariji that came, by Nafi', he said, Ya Ibn Abbas, صف لي ربك. Describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to me. And Ibn Abbas, he had good manners with Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. He said to him, I can't speak in the presence of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein salamullah alayhi. You ask me a question about Allah, you ask me a question about Quran, about Rasulullah, and Imam Hussein is sitting. How, what am I to say when somebody like him is present? So, this Nafi', obviously being a Khariji, he's got history with Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So he turns around, he said to him, Ya Hussein, describe to me Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Hussain salawatullah alayhi, he says, Ya Nafi' asif Rabbi kama wasafa nafsah. I'll describe to you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just like he described himself. And this is something that's very important because in this day and age we live in a time where there's many weird and wonderful ideologies and philosophies and things like that. If somebody wants to study about Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they go and grab a book from some sort of philosopher or somebody like that, or some sort of Sufi, and they say, oh, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They try to get, they learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from that. If you want to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you get it from the Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described himself as, and from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, who nobody knew Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like them. They are the ones who truly knew Allah, and they are the ones who truly worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't worry about all these other books and things like that are being published in so-called Muslim names, but they are unfortunately very far from what Islam has to say. So he says to him, Ya Nafi' asif Rabbi kama wasafa nafsa. I will describe to you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just like he described himself. La yudraku bil hawas wa la yuqasu bin nas. He is not felt or seen by any of the senses, your five senses, smell, your hearing, your sight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not touched or cannot be seen by any of those five senses. Because you know that unfortunately we have some of the Muslims, well, most of the Muslims, they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is visible. They say we will see him. Now, in the Sunni world, they're divided. Some who say that he is visible in this world, that if you may see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world. Some say, no, you can't see him in this world, but you will definitely see him on the Day of Judgment. And they have hadith to prove it, and they have many thoughts about that. They say, no, on the Day of Judgment, we will see God. See him with your eyes. But Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he says, La yudraku bil hawas. God cannot be seen by any of the senses, any of your five senses. He cannot be touched, he cannot be smelt, he cannot be felt, he cannot be seen. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond that. وَلَا يُقَاسُ بِالنَّاسِ. And He is not drawn an image like the people. Because some people, they say God is like the humans were created in the image of God. So they imagine that God looks like a human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, I am not like any other creation. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. If you just understand that ayah in the Quran, it will be very simple for you. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Nothing is like Him. And that's why Imam Hussain continues to describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until this Nafi' starts to cry. He describes Him in such a beautiful way that this Nafi' starts to cry. And he says to him, Ya Hussain, ma ahsanik. How great are you that you describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this way? And Imam Hussain alayhi salam turns around to him and he said, I hear about you, Nafi'. Look at the manners and the beautiful manners of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He says, I hear, Nafi', that you believe that me and my brother and my father are kafir. Is that right? Because that's what the Khawarij used to say. They used to say that Imam Ali and Imam Hussain, they are kafir. And Nafi' has nothing to say, but he says, La wallah, but I bear witness that you are the true message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwwah, you are the true wa ma'dan al-Risala, you are the true message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at how he turned Nafi' from being a Khariji to being a follower, just from showing him part of his knowledge. Another example is about the adhan. You know, the adhan that we do before our salat. Imam Hussain a.s. was sitting in the mosque and he heard some Muslims talking about how adhan came about. They said, oh, Rasulullah, he didn't know how to call for prayers. So he was confused. He said, well, I don't want to blow a trumpet because that's what the Christians do, and I don't want, or that's what the Jewish do, and I don't want to ring the bell because that's what the Christians do. I don't know what to do. How do I call for prayers? It's like he received message on everything in the Quran on how to do everything except for adhan. He doesn't know what to do. It's like he lost connection all of a sudden with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, but I don't know what to do, how to call for prayers. So they said, and then one of the companions, he had a dream on somebody standing on the rooftop of the mosque and making adhan. And he came the next morning to Rasulullah, and Rasulullah said, that's a great idea. We will do that as well. Imam Hussain a.s., he turned around and he said to them, shame on you. This al-adhanu wajhu dinikum. Adhan is the face of your religion. You know, everything has a face, everything has a display. The display of Islam is the adhan. He says, al-adhanu wajhu dinikum. And you make it a dream by some companion, and Rasulullah thought that it was a good idea, and then he prescribed it in Islam. He said, have some shame. Don't you understand that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never did anything from his own? Everything that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did was a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Another example of what Imam Hussain a.s. did in those 10 years is he went to Hajj every year, even in the time of Imam Hassan Mujtaba a.s. They went to Hajj every year. And they used that Hajj opportunity to display the virtues of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib a.s. Why? Because you know that in the time of Muawiyah, you were not allowed to say or narrate one virtue of Amir al-Mu'mineen a.s. Even if it's a hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was narrated by Imam Ali, like قال Ali ibn Abi Talib, سمعت رسول الله, I heard Rasulullah say this and this and this. He says, no, don't say قال Ali ibn Abi. I don't want people to think that Ali was always with the Prophet. He was always with him, listening to what he had to say. He said, don't. And Muawiyah, he made a rule. He said, any virtue you find for Ali ibn Abi Talib, you either delete it or you give it to Uthman. You convert it from Ali to Uthman, and then that way it will keep Bani Umayyah happy. So that was a rule. Nobody was allowed to. It got to the stage where nobody, and that's why it's a miracle that in this day and age we hear the virtues of Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullahi alayhi. Because it lived so many years of difficulties that they weren't allowed to narrate it, they weren't allowed to say it, they weren't allowed to speak of it. You weren't even allowed to call your son Ali. Even your own son, if you had a son and you called him Ali, they would not give you a citizenship. They would not give you a birth certificate. Say you change his name to something else, and then we'll register him. This is the time of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Imam Hussain a.s., he used that time in Hajj, especially the days in Mina. You know that in Hajj, after the day of Arafah and Eid, the Hujjaj, they stay in Mina for 3 days. Back then, nowadays, when we go to Mina, we just spend the minimal time. We go for 4 or 5 hours at night time and we go back to our hotels. Back then, no, they didn't do that. They used to pack all their things and they used to go to Mina and camp in Mina for the entire 3 days until everything was finished. Then they would go back to Mecca. Those 3 days in Mina, there's no set rituals to do other than stoning in the morning. There's no rituals to do. So that Ahlul Bayt alayhim, so that people, the Muslims, they were just sitting there at night time, and Imam Hussain used those 3 nights in Mina as an opportunity to display the virtues of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Because obviously you know that in Hajj, the Muslims come from all around the world. So he used to open his tent in Mina, allow everybody to be inside. They say thousands used to flock in around Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and he used to spend the whole night teaching people about the virtues of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. From the virtues of Hadith al-Ghadir, from the virtues of what happened in Khaybar, from the virtues of what happened on who delivered Surah al-Bara'ah, on the virtues of Mubahala, on the virtues, all these virtues. And he used to say, make sure you go back to your country and you deliver what I have taught you today. So he didn't only want these people to learn the virtues of Imam Ali, he wanted people to also go back to their country and spread. So he was counteracting what Muawiyah was doing. Muawiyah was trying to delete the virtues of Imam Ali, and Imam Hussain alayhi salam was spreading the virtues of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And this is something very important. This is something very important. People think that, what did the Imams do? We don't have any, we don't know about their political role. This is more important than any politics. Spreading the true message, allowing us to know the true Islam. It's more important than anything else. And another important thing that Imam Hussain alayhi salam did in those 10 years is he upheld the treaty that was between Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam and Muawiyah. You know that there was a treaty after the martyrdom of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba got put in a situation where he had to make a treaty, like an agreement between him and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. What that treaty was, is it had, we can summarize it in three main points. The first one is that Muawiyah would not assign anybody as a Khalifa after him. So Muawiyah was allowed to rule at the time, but he was not allowed to assign anybody after him. So once Muawiyah died, the Khilafah would come back to Imam Hassan if he was alive, or Imam Hussain, his brother. So that was the first agreement in the treaty. The other one was to stop cursing Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in their Friday khutbah. Because Muawiyah, he made it a sunnah that if a khatib got up on the minbar to do something, to speak, he would have to start the khutbah with cursing Amir al-Mu'mineen. One of the rules in that treaty was to stop the cursing of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the third one was to stop harassing the Shia and killing them around the world. Because Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, he harassed them. He would, wherever he found a group of Shia, he would hold them, and then he would take them to Sham, and he would put them in court, and they say, based on the crime that they have committed, which is the love of Imam Ali alayhi salam, you are all sentenced to death. And then he would kill them all. So these were the three main, this was the treaty between Imam Hassan Mujtaba and Imam Hussain. Imam Hassan and Muawiyah. But when Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salam was martyred, Imam Hussain had to uphold that same treaty. And it's a really good lesson for us in our lives, that when we make an agreement with something, when we make an agreement with somebody, when there is a treaty, or even you sign a contract, we have to uphold that contract. We have to stick to that agreement. That is something that's very important in Islam. Is that we are not allowed to just sign something, put our names to it, and then 2 years later say, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. Even following like the rules here in this country. If we agreed to come to Australia to live, we have agreed to follow the rules and the laws of this country. And that's part of upholding the agreement in living here. So, moving on, we realize that upholding this agreement was very difficult. Why? Because Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, on his half, on his side, he did not hold the agreement. Did Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan stop the cursing of Imam Ali? No, he didn't. Did Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan stop harassing the Shia? No, he didn't. Did Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan not assign anybody after him after he died? Yes, he did. He assigned Yazid to be the next Khalifa after he died. So all of the sections in the agreement, all of them were defied by Muawiyah. But Imam Hassan Mujtaba and Imam Hussain, they said, since we have an agreement with him, on our side we have to stick to it. And that's why Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he lived some very difficult years. He lived some very difficult years because he had to show that I stick to my word. I am a man of my word. As for him, he is Muawiyah. He is something else. He is a man of no ethics. But I am a man of ethics. When I sign a contract, when I give my word to somebody, I stick to my word. And despite all that, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, he would send letters to Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He says to him, Ya Hussain, he sent him a letter just with one sentence. Ya Hussain, إنك متى تكدني أكدك. He said to him, once you plot against me, I will also plot against you in return. Don't know what he was referring to, because we know that in those 10 years, Imam Hussain alayhi salam never gathered an army or gathered supporters and said, go and fight against Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. But he was just threatening him. In takidni akidk. If you plot against me, I've also got a plot against you. And Imam Hussain alayhi salam wrote back to him. He said to him, إلى معاوية أولست القاتل حجر بن عدي الكندي صاحب رسول الله وأصحابه البررة من بعد أن أعطيتهم المواثيق الموثقة. He said to him, aren't you the one who killed Hijr ibn Uday al-Kindi after you gave him the safe? He gave him the safety. He said to him, you come to Sham, I give you a word that you will be safe. I will not hurt you or harm you, you or your companions. And then by the time he came to Sham, he killed them. He says to him, أولست القاتل عمرو بن الحنف الخزاعي صاحب رسول الله الذي أذهب نفسه بالعبادة. There was a companion of Rasulullah by the name of Amr ibn al-Hanath al-Khuzai. He was a great worshipper. He said to him, that great worshipper, aren't you the one who killed him? أولست المستلحق زياد وهو المولود على فراش عبيد هزءا بقول رسول الله وتجرؤا على حكم الله. He said Ziyad, you know Ziyad, father of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. His name was Ziyad ibn Abi. Ziyad, son of his father. Why? Because nobody knew who his father was. Okay? Ziyad ibn Abi. Muawiyah, out of sympathy for this man, he didn't want people to keep saying Ziyad ibn Abi. He said, no, I realize who his father is. He must have had some genetic testing back then. He said to him, I know who his father is. His father is Abu Sufyan. Hence, he is my brother. So he said, now you should start calling him Ziyad ibn Abi Sufyan. Ziyad, son of Abu Sufyan. Because, it's my father who is his father. And Imam Hussain said to him, you are the one who out of no proof made Ziyad son of Abu Sufyan, when we know that Rasulullah said that if you don't know who the father of is, you can't give him the title or the surname of that family. Ziyad must stay as Ziyad ibn Abi. We don't know who his father is. We can't call him Ziyad ibn Abi Sufyan simply because we feel sorry for him. And then he said to him, وَقُلْتَ إِنَّنِي أَسْعَى فِي الْفِتْنَةِ. You think I am causing fitna in the Muslim Ummah? وَاللَّهِ لَا أَعْرُفُ فِتْنَةً أَضَرُّ عَلَىٰ أُمَّةِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ مِنْ وِلَايَتِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ. I swear to God, there is no more fitna in the Muslim Ummah than the fact that you are ruling them. That is the true fitna. How brave are you, Ya Aba Abdullah? You are in such a spot where you are, under so much pressure, but you still have the bravery to write to Muawiyah whatever you have to say and whatever you have to believe. The Shia at that time, they could not understand, they could not comprehend, why is it that Imam Hussain alayhi salam was still, keeping this treaty? Can't you see what Muawiyah is doing? Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salam, when he did this treaty, the Shia, one of the very famous Shia, he walked into his house, and instead of saying to him, Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulillah, he said to him, Assalamu alayka ya mudhill al-mu'mineen. Peace be upon you, you're the one who gave dhillah to the mu'mineen. By doing this treaty, you are doing dhillah to the mu'mineen. And Imam Hassan replied to him, he said to him, I am doing something based on what I know, what I am doing. If you believe I am an imam, if you believe that I am chosen by God, you have to believe that what I am doing is for your own good. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, in the time where Imam Hassan Mujtaba was killed, and we know that Imam Hassan Mujtaba was killed because of the poison that was plotted to and given to him by the plots of Muawiyah, the Shia could no longer comprehend why Imam Hussain would not stand and fight against Muawiyah. They said to him, he killed your brother, he killed Hujr ibn Uday, he killed this, he killed that, he's doing this. Especially at the time in Imam Hussein's, because Muawiyah started to get very old. He reached in his late 70s, and in that time that was above the average age. He started killing rampage because he wanted the field to be clear for Yazid. He wanted nobody to compete against Yazid. All of a sudden you see all these famous Muslims were dropping dead. What happened? He was just sending them poison, plotting against them, killing so-and-so, killing... Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, all of a sudden dropped dead. Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was killed. What's the other one? The son of Khalid ibn al-Walid, Abdul Rahman ibn Khalid al-Walid, died. Who was killing all these people? What happened? Was there plague? There's no plague at the time. But Muawiyah was clearing all those competitors so that when Yazid came to become the next Khalifa, there was nobody competing against him. Because Yazid was obviously a very controversial figure. And many people were going to say, all these great Muslims are around and we allow Yazid to rule. So all of a sudden they were all getting killed. The Shias were burning. They were saying to Imam Hussain, you have to get up and do something. And Imam Hussain a.s. used to turn around to them and he said, مَا دَامُ هَذَا الطَّاغِيَةَ عَلَى قَيْدِ الْحَيَاةِ, as long as this tyrant is alive, كُونُوا جُلَسَاءَ بَيْتِكُمْ, make sure that you keep still and stay at home. How long for? 10 years. That's not easy, 10 years is a decade. It's a long time that you see the oppression and you see the pain and you see what Muawiyah is doing, and you have to be obedient to the word of your Imam. And he says, as long as Muawiyah is alive, I'm not going to do anything. Make sure you stay at home. It's very difficult. And that's why we find that the Shias at that time, they were starting to become weaker and smaller and smaller, because only a small number of them could be patient. Only a small number of them could actually be patient and tolerant enough to be obedient to the word of Imam Hussain a.s. How many of them could bear to see that and look at their Imam, the Imam saying that as long as Muawiyah is alive, you have to stay at home? But those who did remain patient, those who did hold onto the words of their Imam and were obedient to their Imam, they are the ones that shined like a star. They are the ones that stood out. Like today, I would like to share with you how the great companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Habib ibn Mudahar, how much of an obedient servant to Ahlul Bayt he was. Habib ibn Mudahar fought with Rasulullah his Islamic battles. And he fought with Imam Ali alayhi salam his battles. And he was in the army of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. And then after that, when he heard the words of Imam Hussain alayhi salam that said, as long as Muawiyah is in rule, you have to stay at home, keep at home until I tell you otherwise. Habib ibn Mudahar did that. He stayed in his house in Kufa and did not move, did not say anything. He was a faqih, he was a scholar, he was an abid, a great worshipper. And he stayed at home and didn't say anything. He said, I'm obedient to the word of my master. My master says I have to stay at home and not do anything against Muawiyah, then I will stay at home and not do. And that's why they say that Habib ibn Mudahar, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, was at home one day and he woke up in the morning and his wife, her name is al-Qasim. She said to him, Habib, I had a very strange dream. He said to her, what's it? He said that I was in a gathering with lots of women, and amongst those women was sitting Sayyidati wa Mawlati Fatimah al-Zahra salamullahi alayha. And she came up to me and she said to me, Assalamu alayki ya al-Qasim. Please send my regards to Habib and tell him, isn't it about time that he colored his beard? Habib was a very old man. He was a very old man. He had a very grey beard. And she woke up and she said to Habib, I don't understand the interpretation to this hadith. What does Fatimah al-Zahra salamullahi alayha want from your beard? Why is she telling you that isn't it time that Habib colors his beard? What do you think? You should go and buy some hair dye and put it for your beard? He said to her, no, Ya al-Qasim. If your dream is true, I should be getting a message very soon. I should be receiving a letter from Imam Hussain alayhi salam very soon. As they were sitting there having this conversation, somebody knocks on the door. Ya Habib ibn Mudahir, ana Rasul al-Husayni ilayk. I am the messenger of Imam Hussain to you. Habib ibn Mudahir stands up, runs to the door very quickly, and he passes him a letter. Habib ibn Mudahir opens the letter. He finds the handwriting of Imam Hussain alayhi salam in this letter. من الحسين بن علي بن أبي طالب إلى الشيخ الفقيه Habib ibn Mudahir. Faqih, Imam Hussain alayhi salam is calling him Faqih. Habib ibn Mudahir can't hold himself anymore. He cries, he kisses the letter, he wipes his eyes with it, he puts it on his head. He says to him, Imam Hussain alayhi salam has finally called me. I was hoping for shahada, I was waiting for shahada in all the battles of Rasulullah, and I didn't gain the shahada. And then I said I will gain shahada with Amir al-Mu'mineen, maybe in Jamal, maybe in Siffin, maybe in Nahrawan. I was not a martyr in any of these battles. This is my opportunity, Ya al-Qasim. I'm going to go. Imam Hussain is calling me. In his letter, he says, Ya Habib ibn Mudahir, it's now time for you to answer our call. We are stranded outside Kufa in a land by the name of Karbala. If you want the eternal happiness, come and join me. This is what Imam Hussain wrote in his letter. Inshallah, may Allah grant us the visitation of Imam Hussain alayhi salam in Karbala and the visitation of Habib ibn Mudahir salamullahi alayh, and you will find that Habib is buried in a grave separate to the rest of the companions. And when you look inside the grave of Habib ibn Mudahir, you find a letter that Imam Hussain had written to Habib ibn Mudahir, written on his grave. من الحسين ibn Ali ila Habib ibn Mudahir. And you look at it and you say, what kind of a great status. Why did Imam Zayn al-Abidin decide to bury Habib ibn Mudahir separately from all the other companions? And then Habib ibn Mudahir turned around to his wife and he said to her, al-Qasim, this is where we have to part. I am now going. So how do you leave Kufa? Habib was a very famous man in Kufa. He could not just pack up his bag and get on his horse, and because Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad had complete control over Kufa. Nobody was allowed to exit, nobody was allowed to enter. So he sent his slave with his horse and his sword outside the borders of Kufa, outside the city. And Habib stayed at home, and Habib pretended that he was just walking. He left his slave wait outside, and Habib walked out of his house like ordinarily, as if he's just going for a walk. And he walked until he went and found his slave and his horse stand outside in the forests that are outside Kufa. You know what happened? They say that the slave of Habib ibn Mudahir, he stood for almost a day outside Kufa waiting for Habib to come. And they say there was a very beautiful conversation between the slave and the horse of Habib. They say that slave, he started saying to the horse of Habib ibn Mudahir, he said, Ya Hisan, O horse of Habib, if your master and my master Habib doesn't come to join, then I will get on your back and go to Karbala. Because I want to support Hussein. If Habib doesn't come, it doesn't matter. We will not miss out. You and I will go to Karbala and fight for Hussein. And as he was talking to the horse, Habib ibn Mudahir finally arrives. He says to him, Ya Abd, anta hurrun li wajhillah. You are now free man. He said to the slave, you are free, go. You have done your mission, you have completed your task. I now can have my horse, I'm going to head off. And that slave stood there. He said to him, Ya Habib, you are going to fight for Hussein and you're going to leave me by myself here? What am I going to do? I want to also sacrifice myself for Hussein. And that's why Habib took his slave with him and took him to Karbala. When Habib ibn Mudahir took off to Karbala, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he was waiting for him. He gave the flags to all the different members in the army, and he left one flag, and he kept turning around and looking towards the side of Kufa, waiting for Habib to arrive. And as he was standing there waiting for Habib ibn Mudahir to arrive, he saw him. And as Habib ibn Mudahir arrived, there was lots of takbir and tahleel, and people were very happy that Habib has joined the army of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He arrived and he kissed the hands of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And he said to him, Labbaik ya Aba Abdullah, Labbaik ya Hussain. And he said, as the noise, Imam Hussain hugged him and cried, and Habib ibn Mudahir hugged him back and cried. And the ladies, they heard the sound and the crying and the takbir. So Zainab alayhi salam, she turned around to Ali al-Akbar. She said to him, Ali, what happened? What's all this sound? What do I hear? What's happening outside the tent? He said to her, Aunt Zainab, Habib ibn Mudahir has joined my father. He has come from Kufa to join him. And Zainab alayhi salam said to Ali al-Akbar, go out and send my regards to Habib ibn Mudahir. Ali al-Akbar came outside and said to him, Am ya Habib, Uncle Habib, Zainab sends her salam to you. Habib ibn Mudahir, this reciter of the Quran, he said that he fell to the ground and took the sand from the ground and put it on his head. And he said, who am I to deserve the salam of Zainab? Who am I to deserve the salam of the ladies of Hussein? And then he turned around to Imam Hussain. He said, Ya Aba Abdullah, give me permission to return the salam to Zainab. He said to him, you are given permission. So Habib ibn Mudahir went and sat outside the tent of Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam. He got down on his knees and he bowed his head and said, Assalamu alaykum ya Ahl Bayt al-Nubuwwa wa ma'adin al-Risala wa mukhtalaf al-Malaika. Ana khadimukum Habib, ana abdukum Habib. Zainab alayhi salam, from the inside the tent, she replied, she said, Wa alayka salam ya Shaykh al-Ansar. But she said one more thing that's very painful. She said to him, Ya Habib, please don't stop supporting my brother Hussein. You can see he's all alone in this desert. He doesn't have any supporters. Habib, don't come short of supporting Hussein. Make sure you give him everything. I know that you are a supporter of my grandfather Muhammad. I know you were a supporter of my father Ali. Don't be short of supporting Hussein. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك